Head coaches make hundreds of decisions every day. None of them should be made alone. This podcast exists to be your inner circle. Welcome to Fourth and Three, real conversations coaches have when the office door is closed. I'm Randy Jackson, and I've spent 33 years in the coaches. I know this job is far more than plays and practice plans. It's about handling issues the general public never sees. Pull up a chair and let's get started. Welcome to the Fourth and Three podcast. We're here with a very special guest, Joseph Sam, head coach at Arlington Bowie High School in Texas. I've known Joe since 2011, so it's over a decade. I hired Coach Sam from was it Barry Middle School?
It was the Barry Bears, baby.
The Barry Bears. And he applied for a linebacker job at Mesquite Poteet. And his head coach was Rodney Webb. And I just asked Coach Webb, I said, tell me about Coach Sam. And he said, man, he's a pack mule. And I'd never heard anyone described as a pack mule, and I knew exactly what he was talking about. And that's all I needed to hear. I mean, no ego, just went to work. Honestly, Coach Velasquez and I were talking about this right before we got on here. And Justin said, man, that's all you need to hear, wasn't it? And I said, yeah, because we can teach scheme and all that. So tell us a little bit about you, how long you've been coaching, and then tell us what being a pack mule means to you.
Appreciate you for having me on, number one. The big deal is this is year 16, so I'm kind of in that midpoint, I guess, career-wise. Started out as a former collegiate athlete, and when I got out, I'm just like every other college athlete, trying to figure out where do I fit, and I knew I wanted to try to make an impact. Tried corporate America and didn't like it. And so a mentor of mine, Valerie Nelson, we still stay in contact to this day. She kind of got me connected to my old high school principal, Mr. Randall. He comes up and gets me connected, and they were like, hey, can you get a test passed in 2 weeks? I'll figure it out. I really want to get out of corporate America. And so I was able to pass the test. And the funny thing is that Rodney probably didn't tell you. I think it's a funny story now, obviously being 16 years in it. They asked me, hey, we got a coaches meeting at this time, and I still had a corporate America mindset. So I showed up to my first coaches meeting in a suit and tie. Because I got that corporate America mindset. And so come from there, but I basically sat down in his office and he kind of asked me what my goals and aspirations were. And I told him to his face, I want to sit in your chair. So I said, I need to learn every job possible that will help me get in the chair that you're in right now. And so obviously I started out as your typical junior high coach, going to go scout on Fridays, go through scout reports, and any free second I had, I was always up there at Horn High School helping out wherever I could. And I was just a fly on the wall, just learning. And the good thing is that the staff that was there, they kind of kept the door open for me. And what I mean by that is any question I had, they didn't treat me as some peon coach. You know, whenever I had a question on how they did something or the way they were thinking or why do we do this, because of me being a DB, I didn't know much about the front. So I spent most of my time with the O-line and D-line coaches trying to learn that as much as I could early on so I could be better at it. And one of the reasons I really wanted the job at Poteet is because it was a linebacker's job. And I was like, I understand the back end, but coaching linebackers is going to force me to learn the front end because I knew I wanted to be a defensive coordinator at some point in time.
So here's how this works. It's almost like when I hire someone, I hire the who and not the what. I want to hire a pack mule because coaching linebackers is not splitting atoms, but you really can't make someone a pack mule.
Yeah.
For me to find guests on this show, it's sort of the same way. So I see Coach Sam on Facebook, probably a picture with his young son or something, and I think, I got to ask Joseph to be on the podcast.
Yeah.
I think you can verify this. I reached out and I said, man, will you be on the podcast? And you said, yes, we don't interview people here to learn about them. We want to know what your superpower is to help other coaches. And I really didn't know what you would say, but I know you've been very successful. You took the job at Arlington Bowie. How long you been there?
This is year 5.
Year five. Wow. And of course, jobs don't come open because they're winning a bunch. And so tell us about what's happened in 5 years.
A lot of people don't know this, but my first day on the job at Arlington Bowie, there were literally 21 kids going to off-season football.
Wow.
I took the job in the middle of COVID.
Now tell us how big, because we got people all over the country. How many students? We're talking Arlington, Texas. This is where AT&T Stadium is, South Dallas. How big
Yeah,
is the high school?
that's a 6A high school. So we're a 6A Division II, which is the second highest classification in the state of Texas. It's
2,500 students?
when I took the job, it was about between 27 and 25. Right now, we're at 2,300.
There's a lot of states, Mississippi and some states like
Yeah,
that. That would be the biggest school in the whole state.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So a big
So
school. Yeah, big school.
I got my first job at Fort Bend Hightower, and basically took a 3-7 football team, and in 2 years we made it to the regional semifinals. Loved it, and me and that principal put me in the classroom.
What?
That I got he put me in the classroom, so it was one of those situations where, that on top of some family stuff that was happening, it was time for me to get back to the DFW area just to kind of be able to help out around the house. So when I took that job, it was 21 kids coming because it was during COVID. And so basically I put on a mask, got a rank one list of kids that had played the previous year, and started doing some home visits, knocking on doors and making phone calls and all those different things. And, first year was rough. We went 2-8, lost a lot of close games. And we've gone from 2-8 to back-to-back district champion. We've made it to the area round of the playoffs. This year, we got beat in the first round, but we've done we've complete 180 of the program, where it went from when I took the job, guys were like, it's dead in the water, to it's one of the best jobs in Arlington now.
Okay, so we got a question. It's a coach's office visit, so we're going to go off script here. What was your pitch when you stepped in Holmes? What was your recruiting pitch to get them to come be a part of a dead program?
The biggest thing, I don't like to use the word sell because I am who I am. The biggest thing was, I'm going to do 3 things if your child decides to play football here. He's going to grow as a man, he's going to get better as a football player, and he's going to be ready to enter the real world when he graduates, regardless if that's post-secondary with college or military, or we're going to get him prepared mentally for the real world. The great thing is that I keep track of all the success that we've had. I've been successful everywhere I've been, so I've been able to have those stories to kind of explain not only what we do, but how we do it. And I think the biggest thing parents want to know is not necessarily the what, but the how. And I think that's what kids want to know as well. And that's a trick I learned from Randy, working for him at Poteet. He was a master at not only telling how good we're going to be, but also the process of how we're going to be good. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the tricks I stole from you, is that you always not only tell the kids what we were doing, but not only why and how we were going to get it done. So
yeah,
that's an old Randy Jackson trick is what I'll call it.
Well, you got to show them the vision. You can't just show them the end of the puzzle. You got to show them how we're going to put it together and make them a part of it. And so back to, I'm talking to Coach Sam about being on the podcast. And I said, man, what's your superpower? What can you give head coaches that they can use the next day? And I think within 1 second, you said, be coach somebody. Now, I knew exactly what you're talking about because, it's from that little poem or whatever. Well, anybody can do it. Nobody did it. And I'm not doing a good job.
Yeah.
It hit me immediately, right? Like we're talking about, that is your superpower. And when you were leaving Berry Middle School, you were called a pack mule. You've won everywhere you've been, and you're still a pack mule. But tell us, unpack what be coach somebody means to you.
I think the easiest way to put it is be what you expect. I don't ask the coaches, even as a head coach, I don't ask any of the coaches anything I'm not willing to do. So like, for instance, every week a coach gets assigned who's the last man standing for make sure the field house is locked up and all those different things. And so one of the things I do is I give myself the first week, which is the hardest week, which is the fall camp. We're up there, coaches got teachers meetings and all that other stuff. Well, I'm the last guy standing that week because, if I'm asked them to do it, I need to be willing to do it. When we have the laundry schedule, I'm one of the guys that I put myself on the laundry schedule. So it's me showing the way rather than, hey, you do it. And then I'm going to go off and do something else that, you know, to me, that I feel like you earn more respect with your staff when they feel like you're in the foxhole with them. And I learned that from Randy because he was in the foxhole with us half the time. I remember the conversations we would have where he's up there working late. And even now to this day, I got my door open in the event that if a coach wants to come in, a kid wants to come in, you're going to learn as much as you want to learn. And so, like I've been the film guy, I've been the laundry guy, I've been the equipment. I've got to put out the equipment before practice guy. Every job that I've asked the coach to do, I know how to do it. Now, obviously, I give the coaches the freedom to put their own spin on it. But if they ever needed help on how to get something done, I can actually show them how I would do it. With COVID, guys can be out at any time, anything like that. So there's not one aspect of the program that I haven't personally done as an assistant. So
Awesome.
I think that's what being coach somebody is are you the standard of the expectation that you're setting yourself? So
Yeah, so good. And I've never heard the last man standing. I like that.
yeah,
Not to no one's going to feel sorry for us, but like at North Point, we had an indoor and there's a lot of doors to lock.
yeah,
And I can remember as a head coach, sometimes we're locking doors and I'd look up and this white Hummer would be driving off and I'd be thinking, what the heck, man? And that's Coach Luster who's on here. But I like that term, last man standing. So basically you got, I'm just going to say 16 coaches. Then for
yeah.
16 weeks, everybody's got a week. That's a
Yes, sirs.
good deal. Okay. So everybody on here knows, everyone listening knows Joe Sam's a worker. We all got it, but now we got to get into this. How can you help us with our staff culture? I love talking about coaches' meetings. Every July, I would say, now, guys, we all know on every staff, there's that guy. And that guy has problems. That guy can't find a babysitter. That everybody's got that guy who just seems like he has about 80% of the staff's problems. Don't be that guy.
Yes.
And I know, Joe, you're thinking right now about who that guy is on your staff. So,
Yeah.
how do you? We all know everyone doesn't like to pick up that broom.
Yeah.
So, how do you make sure you don't have that guy not being a pack mule on your staff?
So one of the things I do is, and I stole this from Dabo Swinney when I spent the week there, because I was like, hey, how do you build a great staff? Like I was the defensive coordinator at Legacy at the time. And he said, well, how about you just bring your assistants in during the interview process? Because they may see or ask a question that you don't see or ask. So the great thing is, you know, everywhere I've been, all my assistants are welcome to sit in on interviews. And I allow them to ask questions because, the biggest thing that you don't want to do is mess up a good staff culture. And, we're not perfect at Bowie High School, but, I would say I really don't have that guy, even though I repeat it
Oh,
every July.
that's
I
awesome.
really don't have that guy on staff, but I have had that guy before. I had that guy when I was at Fort Bend Hightower. One of the things that I said was, look, here's one of my non-negotiables. You need to go watch your kids play when it comes to Little League. And at the time, I was just married and didn't have any kids at the time. But one thing I told him was that I will fire you if you don't attend your kids' stuff. And so I ended up having a guy that was not attending his kids' stuff, trying to find his way out of work and all the other stuff. And I just straight up told him, I said, Coach, this place ain't for you. So I said, before this thing gets ugly and I got to document and force your way out, it'd be best for you to find another place to go. And so we ended up finding another place to go. So, but I think having your staff, the guys you trust, come sit in on the interviews because, like I said, they'll ask a question or see something that you may or may not see or ask as you go through the interview process. Like, I know we were interviewing one guy and I liked him, but one of my guys on staff was like, hey, coach, I just saw some stuff on Twitter. Like, I got some guys that are research guys on Twitter, and they're really good at it. And they were like, coach, look what he posted. And so when I see it, I'm like, oh, no, he can't. It's kind of what, no, he can't be a part of it. So I think allowing your assistants to be a part of that interview process allows for the culture of the staff to stay intact.
Yeah, it gives them some ownership,
Yeah.
Plus, like one time Luster got me to hire somebody, and I swear, man, it was the worst. And, it gives them some ownership and it gives you somebody else to blame. I'm just kidding. Okay, so I love scenarios. So let's do this. We're going to go to the interview. And so let's make it real. I'm interviewing. So Randy walks into your office, and I'm interviewing for an assistant O-line job, and I've got a tie on. I've got a coat on, which is rare nowadays. If you're listening to this, please get that corporate mindset, like Joe said. I'm saying all the right things. But again, I hired an NFL guy one time who knew a lot, but man, he was not a pack mule. How are you going to figure out if I'm a pack mule or if I'm just giving you some pretty good answers because I think I know what you want to hear?
I think the biggest thing is, number one, how you present yourself when you come in. I also think how you present yourself when you come in, the energy you bring, like, is it genuine or is it just, I'm just trying to put on a show? One of the things I try to do is in my interview process, I actually ask the same type of question twice throughout the entire interview. And as I'm writing it down, I try to see if the answer is similar. Okay, this guy truly is who he says he is. If it's different, then that means he was trying to put on a show. For instance, one of the questions I use is, when it comes to the players, is it character or ability that's more important? Later on in the interview, I'll ask, what do you care more about, culture or scheme?
Really good.
And I've had guys say, well, character is more important. And then they come back and say, scheme is more important. Well, if character is more important, then culture should be just as important. And vice versa. Questions like that kind of give you those deals. And then if I try to make a connection with anybody that comes in, like I had one guy on my staff that I hired, he had on a polo and some blue jeans, and I wasn't feeling it.
No, I wasn't feeling it. He said he can still get it, but boy, he better interview well.
He interviewed well, and what helped him get the job is I called 3 people that knew him, and they all basically put their jobs on the line for him. I said, would you put your salary on the line for this guy? And all 3 of them were like, yeah, coach, we'll do it. And he's turned out to be one of my best coaches, but I'm not going to call the references that you have on your paper. I'm going to try to make a connection somewhere to where I can call somebody off the record, because they're probably going to give me the real story rather than somebody that you truly have as a reference.
Yeah, I think we all got to figure out how to do that. And because we all know whoever they put down is in their corner. And so would you hire, this is not on the questions I prepped you for, if you could hire the best defensive coordinator in the Dallas Metroplex with 200 high schools, I mean, there's some studs. If you could hire the very best defensive coordinator in the Metroplex, but, he's not a pack mule. He wants to leave a little early and he's not that culture. Would you hire him?
Nope. I wouldn't touch him, because I'd rather hire somebody with extreme work ethic than deal with somebody that where I've got to double check him. Because, like, for instance, I have an offensive coordinator that this past spring that just got his first head coaching job. And I was his first head offensive coordinator job. But the reason he got the job is because when I was at Hightower, when we were at Hightower together, he was the hardest working person in the room. Outside of him and another guy were the 2 hardest workers in the room. And so he's presenting to me his offense and all the other stuff. And I said, look, I love all your ideas schematically, but we're going to kind of tweak some things to make it simpler. But he's currently a head coach. He was the offensive coordinator for 5 years. But to me, a guy with work ethic will figure out the coordinator part, because he's going to work to make sure that it's done right. To me, a guy that's just an X and O guy may or may not be that. He may or may not figure it out. Like me as a defensive coordinator, my first year at Legacy we were a 3-man front. First 2 years, we were a 3-man front. Well, we switched to a 4-man front because drawing up the best 11, 4 of them were D linemen. Well, why do we need to stay in the 3-man? Why do we beat our head against the wall with a 3-man front when the personnel is telling us a 4-man front? Well, now I need to go learn a 4-down front that fits what our kids can do. And to me, pack mules will do that. A guy that knows football is like, well, the kids can't learn well, it's high school football. We don't get to pick our kids.
Yeah.
So can we put our kids in the best position to be successful? And I think pack mules will do that. X and O guys may or may not.
So a pack mule is not just someone. Okay, if I had to, boy, this is funny, y'all. Here's the definition of a pack mule. And every coach in here knows exactly what I'm talking about. In the laundry room, there's an industrial dryer. At the bottom of that dryer, there's a silver handle. Now, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know what's behind that silver handle, you are not a pack mule, sir. No offense, you're not a pack mule. You twist that handle 180 degrees and you open it, and there's a lint trap down there.
Yep.
And I know everyone listening to this has felt under there before and felt 3 inches of lint because it hadn't been changed in forever. So a pack mule, this is so fun to me. A pack mule is a lint cleaner. You can take a broom or whatever, but you know what else? A pack mule is also someone who won't take no for an answer. A pack mule is someone who's going to stay up and figure it out schematically, and they're not just looking at their watch and ready to go home. Practical takeaway for a young coach. So if I'm a young coach listening right now, I want to sell to the person I'm interviewing, that not only do I know how to coach O-line, but I want that guy to think that dude's a worker. So what do I need to say? Give the young coaches listening to this where they can make sure they leave the room with the person thinking they're a pack mule.
I think it's a combination of things. I think number one, volunteer for every job. I know when I was at Barry Middle School, when I was at Poteet, I volunteered for every job that nobody wanted, because in the back of my head, if I want to be the head coach, I need to learn how to do it anyway. Because if a guy leaves, I need to know how to do it until I can hire somebody else that can do it. I would say, number one, that. Number two, get off YouTube and Twitter and get up and get to know people. Because I got my defensive coordinator job at a clinic. You know, I'm in the question and answer part of that particular clinic, and they're presenting about how to stop dual threat quarterbacks. And I asked the question, but Chris Melson was like, well, what do y'all do when it comes to dual threat quarterback and trying to force them one way? And so I'm talking about our defense and what we do and drawing it up. Next thing you know, he takes my phone number, and next thing you know, he interviews me for a job. And then, you know, one thing that you taught us, Randy, on staff, and I don't think you taught it to me, but I don't think you necessarily taught it to everybody, is if I can't sit down and hang with you as a person, why would I want to hire you on staff?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's one of the things too, is that, you know, I know the great thing about being on staff with you was I was sitting here just kind of writing some stuff down. There's 7 head coaches that came from that staff, a superintendent and a principal and an athletic director. And all of us, you know, worked our tails off. It's not like you had to come back and double check anything that we were doing. And then on top of that, you know, we were always, after work, it was nothing for us to go take an hour and just hang out and just, I know there were times you had to just kick us out of the office, but, you know, and those bonds are still around today. So kudos to you for showing us what a good staff looks like. And I talk about that to this day. That's one of the best staffs I've ever worked on, is that Poteet staff, because it was literally 15 dudes just trying to do what's best for kids and getting it.
That's great, man. And you're right. What a great staff. If you're interviewing for a job, you got to make sure that if you just come across as some technical nerd, then that's not enough. You got to come across as the answer is going to be yes. Whatever you need, coach, the answer is going to be yes. I remember at Poteet, so I'd come from a small school, and at small schools, you have to go keep the book at basketball games. You have to go work. And I remember asking coaches, This is a big deal to me. If a football player is playing freshman basketball or JV basketball, and you tell him you love him and all that thing, but you can't ever go watch him play a few games, then that's an issue. And I remember having a little bit of a problem getting coaches because at the bigger schools, they weren't used to going and doing things like that. And the answer I found was making a calendar. Because if you just say, hey, man, I need y'all to go to the games, we all know what's going to happen. Your pack mules are going to go. So
Yep.
do you do anything like that where you make a schedule and to kind of keep it data driven?
Yeah. So I give our coaches a calendar. So they have the calendar right now. I need to give them the April calendar because it's about to be March. I usually work a month ahead, but in March, I usually give them the entire summer. And I do that so that they can go because I can't expect them because I'm big on the kids playing multiple sports. Like they're going to choose something. If
Mm-hmm.
they don't choose anything, they're running track. It ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
I love it.
And so, but like today during off season, we got our boot camp going on, but we had a JV baseball tournament on campus. Well, I kind of told the guys, I said, all right, before we start boot camp, I'll let you guys get some positive points. If y'all go down, you got 3 minutes to get down to the baseball field and cheer your tail off for 10 minutes before we do off season. And, for 10 minutes, you would have thought the stadium was packed because of how loud those kids were cheering for their teammates that were playing in the baseball tournament. And so, to me, like I said, you have to model what you expect. The kids know I'm going to be at it almost every game. I'm going to make a game a week. And it's something I've been doing as an assistant coach. And I kind of look at coaches funny if they can't make stuff. And the good thing is, like I said, all the coaches on my staff, unless they truly have something going on, regardless if it's second sport or something going on with their kids, they try to show up to stuff as well. So, but that's a part of building that culture, building that staff that, guys either are going to conform. Like, he always told me, you either change the coach or you're going to change the coach. And
Mm.
so with our staff culture, coaches are either going to conform to what we have going on or they're going to probably get left behind because they're going to be that fish out of water. You know, in our staff room, if you can't take a joke, you're probably not going to be one of the guys.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to pick up trash when you see it down the hall, you're not one of our guys. If you're not willing to hold a kid accountable, you're not one of our guys. And that's what's kind of helped us build the culture that we have at Bowie High School.
I think there's a hierarchy there too, right? So I remember one time a coach telling me I'd just taken a job and he said, well, the coordinators here, we don't have second sports. We don't do a lot of the manual labor stuff because we're the coordinators. And well, I've been at small schools long enough that really bothered me. How does that sit with you? If you took your next job and a coordinator said something like that, what would be maybe not your response, but what would be going through your head?
My first thing would be, how do you feel about coaching second sport if you had to, for the betterment of all programs? And based on how they answer that question, would probably be a determining factor if they got a job or not. And the reason I say that is I'm not a head coach. If I volunteer to coach freshman girls basketball as a defensive coordinator at Mansfield Legacy High School, our head girls basketball coach was a coach short, and she was in my office just kind of frustrated about it. And I said, well, I'll coach freshman girls basketball. I said, it ain't that
Wow,
big.
coach, I did not know that story. That is awesome.
Yeah. And I was just kind of like, I'll coach it. I mean, I know enough about basketball to coach. And I said, now I do have a stipulation. You got to allow me to go to AFCA. I think it was, I said, you have to allow me to go to AFCA and the DFW clinic on that Saturday. I said, as long as that happens, I'm there. And so, when we went to the fifth round, a lot of people don't know I was coaching. I was obviously doing my coordinator duties football wise, but I was also doing girls basketball that morning. And so, like I said, I'm not going to ask you to do something I haven't personally done myself. And even now, as a head coach, we had a coach my first year. It was either my first or second year at Bowie. He got sick, got the flu, and couldn't coach his game, like was out for the week or whatever. And our head girls basketball coach, same thing. Coach, I need somebody to help me coach this freshman girls team for a week. I was like, I'll do it. I said, now, I'm going to tell you right now, if you see me drawing something up, I'm sitting there trying to teach them a boxing one during a halftime. She's like, what are they doing? They're not running our defense. I said, I know, but this one girl's killing us. So I'm just drawing up this
Yeah.
boxing one to see if I can stop her from killing us so much. And so But she respected the fact that I was not just doing it, but I was truly in it with the kids. And
Coach,
so,
no one does that. If you're listening from another state, I mean, we're blessed in Texas. Coordinators, the head coaches, they don't generally have to coach basketball and things. And so
yeah.
now I do want to say something because he's in here. Eric Luster was my plate cleaner at North Forney. And the older I got, there's just some things I didn't want to do. I didn't want to do PAPFs, but Eric was my plate cleaner. And a plate cleaner is, we got this term from Will Hall, who's the head coach at Tulane, but he's someone who just takes care of the things for the head coach. Do you have a plate cleaner at Bowie?
The good thing is I have my assistant head coach and Devon Campbell takes a lot off my plate. My defensive coordinator takes a lot off my plate. I have my associate head coach, who's my O-line coach, takes a lot off my plate. I don't even know what's going on in strength and conditioning between our strength coach and D-line coach. I don't even know what the heck's going on. I just kind of show up like, hey, what are we doing today?
Okay. All right. So when I was a young coach, this has been in my head for 10 minutes. When I was a young coach, I did not think anyone noticed if I was working hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is worth saying because I really hope young coaches will hear this. What do you say to the young coach who's a position coach and he's keeping his head down, working his tail off? Does his head coach notice?
Every job that I've given to somebody so far in my head coaching career is because somebody worked their tail off to get it. They were doing the job before they did it. For instance, right now, my defense coordinator was my linebacker coach at Bowie. He was doing the job. He was doing the self scout. He was doing everything to take stuff off my defensive coordinator's plate. When my defensive coordinator decided to transition to a new job, you just slide him right in there. Like I said, my offensive coordinator at Bowie, I'm seeing him put together the pass game plan as one of my pass game coordinators. And, he's presenting the plan to where the offense coordinator doesn't even have to worry about the pass game. So, my assistant head coach is a holdover from the previous staff.
Oh,
He was one of the guys when I got here. Hey, coach, this is how you do this. Hey, coach, let me introduce you to these people. Hey, coach, these are the people you need to talk to. Well, why wouldn't I make him my assistant head coach if he doesn't have to help me if he doesn't want to, but because he's busting his tail to do it, why not make him my assistant head coach? He can help me be my eyes and ears in the community and in the program. So
this is kind of interesting thought. Do you think you'll ever promote someone? Because this is a softball question. I already know the answer, but are you ever going to promote in general? Let's just not talk about you.
Yeah.
In general, the coach in Vermont, listen to this. Is he going to get promoted because he's watching a bunch of YouTube stuff and learning 16 coverages, or is he going to get promoted because he's a pack mule?
He's going to get promoted because he's a pack mule. Because, like you told us, it's not necessarily what you know, but are you willing to learn it?
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things that I appreciated, is that you gave us every opportunity to learn as much football as we wanted as assistants. And to me, like I told you earlier, that pack mule is going to figure it out. The X and O guys are just going to be like, well, this is what I know.
Mm-hmm.
And to me,
I'm sorry. And I did it. I stepped on your toes. I worked with guys before who just wanted to learn, like, hey, I'm a D-line guy. They didn't want to know anything about the secondary. Like, just, hey, we're going to shove and close. We're going to shove and close. We're not going to get reached. And what do you say to the coach out there who wants to just be the expert at their position?
Go be uncomfortable and learn a different position. Me as a defensive guy, like I said, from my start, one of the things that I did was, once I got hired on, the first thing I did was I got with the D-line coach to learn D-line. And then I got with the O-line coach to understand pass protection. And then even when I was a middle school coach, even though I wanted to be a defensive coordinator, I always sat in offensive meetings. Because I said, if I want to be a good defensive coach, I need to understand offensive football to the fullest. And the great thing is that Rodney let me sit in offensive game planning. So I kind of understand from when I'm watching somebody else, not only who they're reading, but why they're reading it. Because because of the different things he can do. And I like go sitting in those different position meetings because I always want to sharpen my blade. So if you're just a one position guy, you'll never be that coordinator
Mm-mm.
that you say you want to be. But be willing to go learn and present, a different idea at a different position that because I mean, let's be real, there's only so many pass rush moves. They may give it different terminology, but there's about 4 or 5 pass rush rules out there.
Mm-hmm.
People just call them different things. Power's power, dart's dart, but it's not necessarily what they're running, it's how they're teaching it. To me, that separates the good coaches from the bad
It's the
coaches.
details. And
Yes,
only a
sir.
pack mule knows the details.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of what you become, man. This is a great podcast because if you're listening to this, it's obvious Joseph Sam is just getting started because he's a pack mule. Like I didn't know the story about him coaching freshman basketball. Okay, we got a question from Todd. How do you develop young coaches that may not have coached before or been on a staff with guys that don't work hard? So we got a young guy and he's either been on a staff of lazy dudes or he hadn't coached before. How are you going to get him to be a pack mule?
I've hired 2 young guys on my staff right now. And the first job I gave him was, hey, you're going to be the film guy. I said, if you want to be a head coach, become the film guy. I said, that's the most valuable guy on staff when it comes to football. And I think you, as the head coach, also have to show him the way. So I didn't throw the young coach out to the wolves when it came to like that first night being the film guy. He's trying to learn it. I said, no, I'm going to sit down with you. I'm going to walk you through how to do film the right way. And so I actually sat with him that first night and we inputted and intercutted the whole game. That's something I learned year 1 and 2 as a coach
Mm-hmm.
with Rodney Webb. It wasn't nothing for me to do it because I know the struggles he's about to encounter if he were to do it by himself. And I think you, as the older coach on staff, you also got to pair him with coaches on your staff that will point him in the right direction because we know as a head coach, you kind of get pulled in different directions. So, he's got the right mentors on staff. Our culture amongst the coaches is strong as a staff. And then there's certain things that you can do as a coach. So right now, we're in what we call clinic season as coaches. We're not doing much self-scout right now. I think we had our first offensive and defensive meeting this week. But one thing that I've tasked every position coach to do is to come back and bring back one idea that you think can help us offensively, defensively, or special teams. I'm the first one to present an idea. Next week, I'm going to present my idea of, hey, this is an offensive idea that I saw that fits what we do on offense. Hey, this is a defensive idea that I saw that fits what we do on defense. And to me, that's how you help that young coach grow because it makes him be intentional, not only to learn football, but he's also got to learn your scheme in order to know what to bring back that can bring benefit to the staff.
Mm. Okay. But okay. This is a great discussion, but it's easy to talk about being a pack mule. But I'm telling you guys, I got a little PTSD because for the most part, unless you hire the right people, you have to make people be a pack mule.
Yep.
And you can't have 3 guys on your staff lazy. I mean, it's just so, okay, this was said to me one time, and I'll just say the school at Poteet after the first year, he was a senior. And my attitude when I went into Poteet, and they had been bad, I was told not to take the job. My attitude was, we're going to do so much for these kids. We're going to make it a place they just can't live without. They're going to lay in traffic for us. And maybe we're going to win some more games. And so I asked the coaches to do a lot. I want you to have kids over for dinner once once a week or every 2 weeks or something. But I mean, it wasn't just go coach linebackers. There was a lot going on. I wanted every coach. I remember this. Before the end of fall camp, I wanted every assistant coach to do one community service project with their position group. And they had all summer to do it. But like you said, I did it too. I remember
Yeah.
Cortland Crumby. I'm just throwing some names out there for Justin, but Rodney Haynes. Like we went to a community garden and worked and put out mulch. And I really believe that when I put out mulch with some kids, that bonds us like nobody's business. And but at the end of the season, by the way, we went 12-3. It was amazing. It was magical. I wish everyone could experience it. But I had a coach tell me at some point in that winter, he said, "You're a great head coach for kids, but you're hard on assistants. You ask us to do a lot." And it was like a bittersweet. And it felt bad, but I didn't apologize. I thought, well, that's why we won. How
Right.
does that statement make you feel? If someone hasn't told you that, they're going to. And the person listening to this needs to understand, man, if you're going to have a culture of pack mules, it's not going to be for the faint of heart. Like, it's not going to be all unicorns and rainbows, right? So, how do you
Yeah.
handle that for the coaches who don't love that?
One of the things that I get blamed for all the time is, well, coach, you meet a lot. Well, I'd rather over communicate the message than under communicate it. We're going to meet once a week, regardless if I got a lot to say or not much to say. And I'm going to talk about things we need to do to get better. It's a constant evaluation. There's even times where I've even called my own self out. And when somebody's told me this about when I was working for Randy, they was like, was he hard to work for? I was like, no. I said, people that don't like work for Randy Jackson don't like work.
Yeah, I have a bad
And it's,
reputation as far as most people think I'm just the worst guy ever. But you're right, though. It's guys, people like you, man, because y'all are in. Like, you get it. And this job is hard if you're going to serve kids.
yeah. And so, like when they asked me about you, I just like, no. I said, now, if you don't like working, he ain't the guy to work for. I said, but if you love kids and doing what's best for them, you're going to be fine. I said, he's going to fire you probably once a season, on the sideline. But outside of that, you're going to be fine. But when it comes to the staff I was able to put together, outside of the guys getting promotions, the guys that have left needed to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take it personal if a guy wants to leave and it's not for a promotion, because that, to me, that's the signal of this wasn't for you anyway. And
Yeah.
so I don't take that personal, because for every job that I've had open, I've had at least 40 to 50 people reaching out to me like, hey, coach, I see what you do. I love everything about it. I want to be a part of it. So it's actually harder for me to make decisions on who I'm going to hire than who I'm going to fire, because we've built this, like I said, the culture that we've built, it's something special.
Justin, can you unmute? So, I've already talked about Justin. He was at Poteet the year before Coach Sam came there. Justin just took a head coaching job at Brazosport down around Houston, and he has to, true or false, for him to have a culture of pack mules, he has to make sure his coordinators are pack mules. How big is, tell Justin, and again, I want this to be a conversation. That's why I asked him to unmute, but what's your advice to Justin that he must not screw up when he's, because he hadn't filled his staff yet? What's he got to make sure he does first?
I think the first thing you have to do is evaluate the state of affairs. Where I was at both head coaching jobs I've gotten, I always say take 2 weeks. Anybody that's asked me, what do you do once you become a head coach? I feel like you need to take 2 weeks to evaluate everything. You need to meet as many people as you can while evaluating the current state of affairs in the program. And the reason I say that is there's at least 1 or 2 people on staff that are worth keeping.
Mm-hmm.
They just had bad leadership. And I always say 2 weeks because, for a day or two, guys going to give you their best face. And the thing I like doing in between that 2 week time period is I like meeting with them early in the morning. And it's not the old coach adage of, well, we're going to meet early in the morning just to see who shows up. No, I don't want that. We're meeting early in the morning so I can teach you how I like to do things. So when things do change, everybody, you're either on board or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I do those things to kind of make guys uncomfortable. And, some of the things that I've done is, hey, let's wake up early in the morning and we're going to inventory something. I just want to see what guys are going to be all in it when it comes to inventory and what guys are going to be standing in the back, trying to shoot the breeze.
That's awesome. There's some guys not happy back there.
Who wants to wake up at 6 a.m.? Who wants to be in the school at 6 a.m., the equipment room?
So, Justin, tell us, by the way, Joe, I forgot to tell you this. Justin is the #1 listened to podcast of my long history of, I think, 6 podcasts. And so Justin has got this, he's set the bar. And
Gotcha.
so, Justin, tell us, really for the listeners here, what are you doing as you're still hiring coaches to make sure you have a culture of pack mules?
Yeah, right now it's kind of like Sam already said, is detailing what needs to be done and then kind of sitting back and waiting for who's going to raise their hand to do that, right? Then from there, delegating different things and making sure that people know exactly what is expected of them. I think that's part of it is not just sitting back and seeing if things get done or not, and people didn't have that expectation of what it was that you were looking for, right? So being very clear in what it is that I'm looking for, and then having checkpoints to making sure that these things are getting done.
Love it. I love it. I love what you said too about first thing you should do, I think, is who will raise their hand.
Yep.
And as a young coach, please, if you're a young coach working hard and you're not sure if anybody notices, they do. All right, Coach Luster, can you talk to us?
Yes, sir.
Now we're true coaching office here. What is your advice to anyone listening? How do you get a bunch of Joe Sams on your staff?
You can't be afraid, man, to not look at resumes. I don't even look at resumes when I hire people anymore. Now, especially being down here, I try to find guys who grad assistants. Those guys know how to work. They're grinders. I try to get those guys that I'll get a phone call for. Hey, right out of college, but he's a coach. He's a good one, man. He studies film. He's my best at this position. So I really take those guys with no experience. They're only going to know my way of how to do things versus that old guy that's going to come in and try to tell you, hey, man, when I was this is how we did it. I could care less about how you used to do it. Can you do it my way now? So for me, coach, man, it's not, I wrote this down and listen to Joe, but my thing is now, man, if you want a seat at my table, bring it to go box and take off my plate.
Yeah.
And so that's my thing now. I don't want a guy that wanted to be at my table. I want a guy, man, that wanted to get to go box and take stuff off my plate. That's what's going to help me. I don't want a guy that's going to come in and just sit there at the table. Man, hey, will you be willing to take care of like the mom's one-on-one program so I ain't got to worry about that? Like, are you going to be the guy that I can say, hey, I got these volunteer events. Can you go out and head that up? So I ain't got to worry about that. The more guys that I can get to take things off my plate, the better my program is going to be. The more that we could do. But if it's just one guy doing everything, then, man, we're going to struggle.
I know. And it's hard, y'all, because I loved hearing Coach Sam talk about, I want to learn this, and this. I want to be a head coach. When my dad was a head coach, so when I got into the profession, I thought everybody wanted to be one. Honestly, a lot of people don't. They just want to kind of get through and be left alone as much as possible.
What I see is the sunroof on his truck there. He act like I don't see it.
Okay. Joe. All right, Joe. So last question, $1 million question.
Yep.
What do you know now that you wish you'd have known 16 years ago that can help every coach listening to this do something tomorrow?
I think the biggest thing is it's okay. And I think this is for any young coach. It's okay to say, I don't know how to do it. Your head coach gives you a task. I remember the first time I got assigned as the film guy, and I'm sitting there looking like, all right, well, I'm going to figure it out. And instead of going to Rodney, you don't want to go to the head coach and be like, I don't know how to do this. I went to the DC at the time, who was Sammy Lewanson, and I said, hey, Sammy, I don't know how to do film. And he was like, I got you. But I think me just at least having the awareness to say, hey, Sammy, I don't know how to do this. And him taking me underneath his wing, because you'll never know who will help you if you don't open up your mouth and speak. And I think just that little moment let me know it's okay to say I don't know how to do something. And I think that's one of the things that's helped me in my careers, because, if I don't know the answer to something, I'm going to say I don't know right now, but I'm about to go find it. And so I know my first year being a head coach, there's probably 4 or 5 head coaches I had on my Rolodex. Randy, you were one of them. I'm calling every week. Hey, I don't know how to do this. And I think it's okay to say those things until you kind of get into the groove and develop your own way on how to do it. When it came to coming up with our boot camp, it's similar to what we did at Poteet, but it's different because I called multiple head coaches. Hey, how do you do your boot camp? And through all these ideas and my own experiences and what I was trying to get out of it, that's the reason why we're able to build that as the foundation of our program. And, changing defenses, changing offense, you got to go talk to people. And you got to be okay with not knowing certain things and being that uncomfortable situation. I think the biggest problem is sometimes us as coaches, we allow our egos to prevent progress. And I think that's the biggest enemy to progress is ego. You got to be okay with, Coach, I'm going to allow you to take the lead, knowing that while you're taking the lead, I'm learning so I can not only implement it, but I can implement it in the way I see best. And that's happened multiple times.
So a pack mule, the answer is always yes. That's one of my put it on my cremation jar. The answer is always yes for a pack mule. A pack mule's not too prideful to say, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. I love that. And then give me the third thing a pack mule is.
I think be available. Like me as a head coach, my biggest deal is I need to be available for my assistants. Like I had a coach ask me a week ago, hey coach, can I come with you to the DEC meeting to make the rules? Well, it's my assistant head coach that wants to be a head coach. Well, how does he know if he ever gets a chance to sit in my chair? Well, the only way he knows how to operate in the DEC meeting and pick refs is to come with me and see it. And that's one of the things I do. Like when the guys come to order, and I stole this from you, Randy. You always left your door open when somebody was coming in to order, or when a school came by to recruit a kid. It was nothing for us to be able to sit down and listen as you're having those interactions. And the funny thing is when I got the job at Mesquite Poteet, Bruce Chambers, who was at the University of Texas at the time, is the assistant athletic director in Arlington ISD. And he still remembered me as the young coach asking him questions.
That's awesome.
At Poteet, sitting down on the couch, just being the young, curious head coach. When Randy's like, hey, go walk him around the school for me. And we're just having that conversation as he walks around the school. Because at that point in time, we did have some players that had a lot of schools coming through wanting to recruit them. And I think it's little moments like that, by being accessible and available, on top of always saying yes, not having prideful. But those accessibility and availability, I think pack mules are great at those two things.
Love this conversation. Joseph, I'm so proud of you, dude. Like, this is so much fun. I just feel like you are a rock star, and everyone listening to this knows you're just going to keep adding to your career because you're a worker. It is about being a pack mule. And I haven't used the term pack mule, honestly, in forever, but that just popped in my head when you agreed to do this interview. And man, we appreciate you, buddy. You got people better today. And this has been the best hour of my week, just getting to hang out with you. So thank you.
No, I appreciate you. Last thing I'll leave people with is you may not know everything, but you can outwork everybody in the room. And I know that's one thing Randy challenged us with, and we kind of kept score of who did Randy compliment the most that week. We kept a score of who didn't get fired that week. That was a running tally.
Man, and just so you know, your staff's probably got some secret tally on you now.
Absolutely.
Appreciate everybody that joined in. Joseph, thank you, buddy. If I'm in Arlington, I'm going to stop by and get me a Bowie t-shirt from you someday and take a selfie with you. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for doing this.
Appreciate you, Coach, for giving me the opportunity.
All right. See you guys.